Tonight, I'm going to tell you the true story from a recent news article about a man named Terry Holdbrooks Jr., who was a prison guard at the infamous Guantanamo Bay and who converted to Islam while he was there after several conversations with Muslims and seeing how they conducted themselves in intense settings like that. So I'm going to be reading this story to you. It's a very thought-provoking story, and I have some things that I would like to share with you from it, and I would love to hear some of your responses to it also. I believe this is a very important story because Islam claims to be the fastest growing religion in the world. And so I believe that we as believers in Yeshua, the Messiah, should be studying Islam so that we can understand what do Muslims believe, why is Islam growing the way that it is, what is its appeal, those kinds of questions. Here's an interesting statistic. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the prison systems of North America. So if you are an inmate in a prison in North America, you are most likely to become a Muslim than you are to join with any other religion. Why is that? Why is it that Islam is so attractive to males in the prison system? I have here a book. It's called Why Men Hate Going to Church by David Murrow. It's a barn burner. It's challenging. It's somewhat controversial, but I think it's a book worth reading. It's a book that I definitely agree with many of his points and his practical applications and conclusions. And then I also disagree with some of them, of course. But he has some statistics in here that I think should shock people in the Christian world into action. I think some of these statistics should scare us, should force us to ask some big, tough questions. He points out that there is a decreasing number of men in church. It's what you'd call a gender gap. On your typical Sunday, there are more women than men in church. And that isn't just because in the general population there are slightly more females than males. There's a gaping number of like a numerical gender gap. One of the things Barna says here is, by combining figures from the U.S. Census and a study by Barna Research, we can estimate a weekly gender gap of more than 13 million in America's churches. So on your typical Sunday, you have approximately 49 million women in church and approximately 36 million men. Did you hear that? 49 million women, 36 million men. So that's about a 13 million difference. Basically, that's basically for every 3 women, there's 2 men. You could put it like that. Interestingly enough, this isn't the case with other religions. Judaism, Islam, they have equal gender involvement, roughly speaking, but Christianity is different for some reason. For some reason, there's something about how we do church that turns men off, that drives them out, that marginalizes them. This is just cold, hard facts. These are just the statistics talking. And it's worse in some churches than others. For instance, Murrow points out observers such as Edward Thompson and Jawanza Kunjufu confirm that 75 to 90% of the adults who attend African American congregations are women. So if you are an African American and you go to church, it's likely that there will be like 75% of your congregation to 90% of your congregation will be female. So you might have what would that be roughly? It would be like 4 women to every man, or maybe even 10 women to every man. So this is especially a big problem in some church circles, like African American church circles. Murrow then goes on to point out, contrast this to black Muslims who are overwhelmingly male. If current trends continue, the African American community faces the prospect of separate religions for each gender. Christianity for women, Islam for men. That's the way things are going if that trend continues. Eventually, Christianity will be seen as the religion for African American women, and Islam will be the religion of choice, the religion by default for African American men. Why is that? Why is it that there's something about Islam that attracts men more than Christianity? That's I believe that some of the answers to those questions are actually found in the story. So I'll read you the story. I'll stop to make some comments, and we can have more discussion at the end. This story just came out. It's by Kay Campbell on May 26th, 2013. The story is about this man. You can see the picture of him here, Terry Holdbrooks Jr. It says, Terry Holdbrooks Jr., caption to the picture, converted to Islam while serving as a U.S. Army military policeman guarding detainees at Guantanamo Bay. It was the faith he saw lived by the detainees that drew him to study the religion he'd been told was violent and destructive. And he found there a discipline and peace he'd sought all his life. So here's the story. Terry Holdbrooks Jr., 29, wears the beard of a bald Amish guy, the tattoos of a punk kid, and the twitchy alertness of a military policeman. Take him to a restaurant and he'll choose the chair with its back against the wall. Take his photo and he'll prefer to look away from the camera. Part of that wariness Holdbrooks learned while guarding detainees from 2003 to 2004 at Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. holding tank for military prisoners on the southeastern point of Cuba. And part of that wariness he developed after he converted to Islam while stationed at Guantanamo. That was after months of midnight conversations with the Muslim detainees. And his conversion prompted several of his fellow...
Thanks for checking out this sampler. To get the whole thing, go to holylanguage.com and subscribe. I'll see you there.